Yo, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. I'm your host, Eric Triple E. Engel. You may know me as the former producer for the Murph and Mac Morning Show on KMBR, or maybe from some of these other Locked On postcasts / squad shows we do. But this week, we got a matchup against the Arizona Cardinals. The Niners, not very good against them in the Kyle Shanahan era. How can they turn that one around?
Leaves starting to turn and fall off the trees. You know what that means, guys? It's wide back season. There's a new wide back in town, and his name is Christian McCaffrey.
Hey, everyone. Dwayne Boyd here, four-time Super Bowl champion. Hey, the 49ers are facing something new this week, a running quarterback.
Something they haven't encountered yet this season. We'll get into it right now on the Locked On 49ers Squad Show.
To all the faithful, it's the 49ers Squad. Everything San Francisco 49ers every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from Levi Stadium. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. For those faithful to the Bay, the 49ers Squad Show starts now.
And thanks so much to everyone, all our everydayers, for tuning in. Appreciate all you guys. Thanks for making us your first listen whenever you need your 49ers news. And just a reminder, today's episode sponsored by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. And a big matchup against the Arizona Cardinals this week. The Niners, a hot start. That was Dwayne's big key to success for the 49ers season so far. And so far, looking good, 2-0. But now you come up against a divisional foe, and I think this is going to be a little bit of a tougher opponent personally than the 49ers have faced in their first two games this season. But I want to get into how you guys are just kind of feeling before we get into the nitty-gritty of everything. How are you guys kind of feeling about the 49ers after these the first 2 weeks? You kind of let that week 2 win settle in. Dwayne, I want to go to you first. How are you feeling about this squad right now? Your confidence level on a scale of 1 to 10, where you at?
I might be in the middle right now because this game is going to depend on how well the defense can contain this quarterback. He's slippery and the guy's elusive, And the thing about it is you got to keep him in the pocket because he's not that tall. So he has a problem, He's better on the long ball when he's out the pocket. So they got to make him uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it's something that they have not really had to deal with too much. I mean, Spencer Rattler, I guess, was showing some mobility in that Saints game, but not the same level as Kyler Murray. And so, Brian, how same kind of question to you. Your confidence level with in the 49ers with where they're kind of sitting after these first 2 wins on a scale of 1 to 10. Where are you at with this team right now?
I think on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 out of 10 coming out of these 2 first weeks. With a win, your quarterback goes down. You win a game with your backup quarterback. So for the Niners to be 2-0 right now, they're in a really good spot. But the confidence going forward, I think still a lot remains to be seen. I think it's going to be a big litmus test this week against the Arizona Cardinals, a division rival who's also 2-0. Both teams have beaten up on a New Orleans Saints team as one of their wins, and I think the Saints are a team that are just good enough to lose a lot of games. So I don't know if that was a great barometer of how good these teams are. So I'm fascinated to see what transpires on Sunday with the 49ers and the Cardinals. And I think it's a good sign that the 49ers are well coached enough that on one side of the ball, they can get through some injuries. George Kittle, your starting quarterback, like those are big players to lose for the 49ers offense. But Kyle Shanahan got him through that. And Robert Saleh getting him through the growing pains of a lot of young players on the defensive side of the ball to be here 2-0 for the 49ers, I think is a great sign.
And just in general, the 49ers against the Cardinals, they've struggled in the Kyle Shanahan era, and they struggled last season. They're 7-9 against the Cardinals since Kyle Shanahan took over as head coach of the 49ers. And last year, 0-2 against the Cardinals. So and obviously we know how important these NFC West divisional games are. They're the all-important division rivalry, and Dwayne, how important is this game to kind of continue that hot start? I mean, is this, I mean, I'm not going to call it a must win, but when you're looking ahead to, like, for instance, next week against the Jaguars and a couple weeks against the Bucks, does this game feel like it carries a little more weight than, say, next week against the Jaguars?
Yeah, it does. As a player, you can't get caught up looking at the two teams they played earlier. You can't judge this team by the Carolina Panthers or the New Orleans Saints. You got to judge them by what happened in the past with these guys. And that's scary as a player and as a coach. You come out to shoot. You got to come out to shoot fast on a team like this, and when you get them down, you can't let them back in the game. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, and it's going to be tough for them to I think beat this Cardinals team. I know that they're coming home for the first time this season, and the faithful is going to be loud at Levi's. It's going to be a heck of a home opener, but there's just something about this Cardinals team, man. They always make me just a little bit uneasy. They're always just a thorn in the 49ers side. You know what I mean?
There's a good point, Dwayne, by the way. The opponents for the Arizona Cardinals the first 2 weeks, not only the New Orleans Saints, but an even worse football team in the Carolina Panthers might be the worst team in the NFL right now. So we don't really know a lot about the Arizona Cardinals in their first 2 wins of the season. Here's another stat for you, Eric, with the 49ers and the Cardinals. The Cards are only 4-14 in the division since 2022. So that means almost all of their wins have become against the 49ers in the division.
Man, just driving that thorn deeper into the side with these analytics, man. But yeah, I mean, I do think that this Cardinals team, I mean, we were kind of going over their rankings as far as like offense and their defensive rankings as well. And they're not very high. I think, Dwayne, you said they were ranked 24th in the NFL defensively and 21st offensively. It's to me, this Cardinals team is you can't look at those kinds of numbers in these division games, right? Like these are opponents that you see every single year, twice a year, and they just kind of have a beat on you. And just in general, over the years, they have been a more difficult team for the 49ers to beat. And I do think that, like Dwayne said at the beginning of the show, that mobile quarterback is a thing. And I'm not going to say that, I don't necessarily buy into the rhetoric that Kyle Shanahan doesn't know how to play defense against a mobile quarterback, because Kyle Shanahan's not really calling that defense. It's Bob Saleh's domain. So what's Robert Saleh going to need to do in order to contain Kyler Murray? And do you think that the 49ers are going to be able to do that, Dwayne?
One thing about a quarterback like this, you don't want to play a lot of man-to-man, okay? If you play a man-to-man, if you're playing man-to-man, you got to put a spy on him. You can't just let him get a free pass, So, and when he's out the pocket, if they playing zone, then the corners, man, they gotta plaster, they gotta climb up on that receivers and keep him, from getting that long ball down the field, because he got some guys, McBride and Harrison, who hasn't had a great season yet, but he has some ball catchers, and also the tight end. He's got a little age on him, a little rust, but hey, he comes up every once in a while with big plays. So that's going to be a big key too.
Dwayne, we were looking at the numbers with Robert Saleh's defense this year and how it might have changed since the last 2 defensive coordinators, and even from Robert Saleh's first time as defensive coordinator of the 49ers. And he's playing more zone and fewer man than he ever has, and that the 49ers have ever in the Kyle Shanahan era. And so they're only in the first 2 weeks of the season, only playing about 15% man coverage. That number jumps a little bit league wide. And for the 49ers on third downs, playing a little bit more man coverage. But I imagine that's probably even going to drop this week against Kyler Murray because of the reasons you stated. But one thing the 49ers defense has done so far under Robert Saleh is be really good at contain and setting the edge. And I think that's one of the things Robert Saleh, and I've talked about this before, coming in and day one, he's probably watching the tape of last year's 49ers team. Was like, guys, this is not going to cut it. We got to get better against the run. In fact, let's just let every defensive lineman go that's not named Nick Bosa and draft 5 straight defensive players, all of them better against the run than the pass, maybe with Upton Stout excluded from that because he's a coverage guy, but he's pretty good against the run and feisty against the run. And hey, a heck of a blitzer as well is Upton Stout. Yeah. But the 49ers clearly needed to get better against the run. I think getting more eyes on the backfield, playing this zone coverage is part of that. I think getting so many run defending young players is a part of that. And my question is, how good will they rush the passer? Because I think the Arizona Cardinals have a much better offensive line than the Saints did last week.
Oh yeah, they do have a better offensive line, and the thing that you hit it too is like if the Cards come in, they might want to play, hey, our defense can match up against this 49er offense because of the injuries to key players, and they might want to play one of those keep away games like, hey, let's just go out and pound them against this defense. Last year the 49ers struggled stopping the run, and we'll turn it into one of those games, one of those type games. We'll slow the pace down, and don't let the big plays, don't let the 49ers get the big plays on us. It's going to be our defense against the 49ers defense.
Yeah, and I really do think that it's going to come down to that. Can the 49ers contain Kyler Murray? And like you guys said, he's got a couple weapons out there offensively. Marvin Harrison Jr., the most notable one, but he hasn't really had the season that they've expected from him. Against the Panthers, he had just 2 receptions for 27 yards on 5 targets, so not very effective at all. Just almost a non-factor in that one. But against the Saints, he did have 5 receptions for 71 yards and a touchdown. Only 6 targets though, so he's not really getting the bulk of those targets. Those are still going to Trey McBride. So to me, that tells me that the 49ers are going to have to match up with McBride well, more so than Harrison. And what do you think the 49ers are going to do there, Dwayne? Do you think they're going to use would they be better off utilizing like a Fred Warner in coverage? I know you're saying probably more of a zone look than a man look because they're going against Kyler Murray, but how should they handle Trey McBride? Should they primarily utilize a slot corner on him because he is so athletic out there in pass catching routes, or should they maybe try to use a safety or Fred Warner? What would you do if you were Robert Saleh in this situation?
Well, right now he's showing that he's the best receiver, right? So I would put my best cover guy on him, okay, and then the other side of the field we'll play zone. It's because we used to do that with Dion Sanders, because Dion Sanders never liked to play zone. Dion wanted to be in man to man, so we would put Dion in man and zone the rest of the field, because Dion would come to the huddle and say, "Hey, Captain, I got my man. Don't worry about me." So that's what we would do, and that's what I would do to the best receiver too. I would man him up and then let the rest of the team play zone.
Yeah, it would be nice if prime 1994 Dion Sanders walked through the door for the 49ers defense. That makes things a lot easier for the rest of the coverage unit, man.
It definitely would. Prime was something too. I remember, we won't get into telling stories, We was playing San Diego Chargers in December, and you go down to San Diego, it was a warm day, and Dion, I forgot the receiver. Who was a good receiver for them back in the day? I can't remember his name now. And he kept running go routes. Every time he would run a go route and would run Dion off.
Mm-hmm.
Dion came to the sidelines and he told me, he said, "Hey, Captain, hey man, can you put a hat on my head?" I said, "A hat on your head? What are you talking about?" That means Dion wanted a cloud. He wanted his own. Put a hat on the head, buddy.
He's tired of being the cardio king out there getting run off every time, huh?
Yeah.
Oh man, that Dwayne, don't ever hesitate to tell stories. Like we love the stories. That's what we want. You know what I mean? Like the more stories, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Any time you want to chime in with a Dion story or a Jerry story or a John Taylor story or a Ronnie story, anytime you have 100% freedom to do that at any and all points.
I didn't know that at the time, so.
Oh yeah, lay it on us too, because especially if there's anybody in our audience that's younger than 30 years old, they don't remember what it's like with a championship football team with the 49ers. And you got 4 of them, so you can tell a lot of the stories about what it's like with championship seasons, because a lot of folks out there don't know.
Yeah, some of the things that were on the huddle too.
Yeah. Oh, there might be some stories you do need to hold back, or we might need a beep button here, but yeah, dude, I want to hear about all those stories going back to, what was your first year with the 49ers?
1979. I came in with Joe and Dwight. We came in together. Yeah,
nice.
But I came from Pittsburgh, though. I came in the hard way. I was cut, and then I was claimed on waivers by the 49ers for $100. So I gave the $100 back to Mr. D.
Nice. So you didn't make it out of your rookie camp, or were you waived during the season?
No, I made it out of rookie camp. It was the last cut of the season, and I remember going into Three Rivers Stadium, with all the rookies that was in the draft, and I was the last guy in line, and Chuck Noll's office was right at the front entry, his door was open, and here go the rookies. We coming in, we trying to sneak in, it's like, okay, we're gonna come in and dash to the locker room real fast. So I was the last guy, and he pointed at me, hey, come to me. Come here. I want to see you. And I walked in the door. He said, you got your playbook with you? And I knew that was it.
Playbook.
That's the dark days of my last game in the NFL.
You never want him to ask you to bring your playbook with you.
No, you never want to hear that.
You ended up in a better spot, man. 4-time Super Bowl champion.
We won a few more Super Bowls after the Pittsburgh team.
We certainly did. And Dwayne, I read an interesting, I was reading up on all of this actually before we started the show together. And I wanted to, bone up on my Dwayne board knowledge. I needed to get up to speed. And I mean, obviously I know the accolades and all of that, but I wanted to get into the nitty gritty about just kind of like your journey to the NFL, man. And the way, at least what I read about how you ended up with the 49ers specifically was pretty interesting. So I was wondering if you'd be willing to talk about that a little bit. Like, when did you first get that call and what was that like?
Well, I was, actually I left the stadium, and I walked back across back to the hotel that we were staying at now. And I went into my room and I saw my message light blinking, and I called downstairs and got my message. They say it was a call from Bill Walsh. And Bill said, when I called him back, he said, hey, we just claimed you on waivers. I said, what? You claim me? And so and they said, well, we have a flight for you to come out to San Francisco. So I went to the airport, and I'm in the airport, and I was thinking, well, should I go to San Francisco or should I go? I had a job in Syracuse, New York, working as a quality control engineer. And I was in the airport wondering, well, let me see, what plane should I get on? And both of them was leaving at the same time. So I said, oh, heck, I've never been to California. Let me get on that plane. So I got on the flight and flew out here with the 49ers. And when I got here, it was interesting, because you leave a team with great players and then you come to a team with, I think there was 2-14 the first year that I came here. And it was amazing how much difference it was in the attitude of the guys who played the game. I mean, when you walked on the field with the Steelers, those guys, every one of them had an attitude, hey, we winning this, and then you come to the 49ers and it was like, I don't know. It was a lot of uncertainty, mm-hmm. and that was the difference, when you playing with guys with confidence, because everybody puts their pants on the same way, one leg at a time, and some of them might jump a little higher, but you got enough of, good guys and enough of average guys when you put them together, because the Steelers had average guys too, but the good guys made them better. And when everything turned around for the 49ers was 1981, when Bill Walsh brought in guys, from winning teams, okay? He even drafted guys from winning teams. He went out and got Riley from USC, and all Riley did at USC was win. So then he brought in Jack Reynolds, who was with the Rams, okay? And Jack Reynolds, all he did with the Rams, when the Rams used to, they owned the 49ers for I don't know how many years, And then he went and got Fred Dean and put those guys in. You put these guys in the mix, and all of a sudden you got a bunch of young guys who learning from these guys, that it became a bond, And I remember we used to go, my first year with the 49ers, we never, as a team after practice, we never got together and watched film together, And when Hacksaw and Fred Dean came, we would get together after practice, at somebody's house and watch film together, And that was something that never never happened my first year. And then when I was at Pittsburgh, I remember that was the same way with those guys, you know. They would get together and play cards and, you know, smoke cigars and drink what's the Iron City beer, was just crap, you know. It was like made from river water, but they would get together, you know, and after practice. And that was the thing, you know, it's all about bonding, you know, and that's what happened to us the first year. We bonded, you know, and through my whole career there, we were the same way. We bonded as one unit. And today, it's not like that, you know. These guys, they work 9 to 5. You know, a lot of them do. And then they go home and watch film. They might watch film, but they're watching the film of themselves and not sharing information with the other teammates. Because we used to sit in and with Hacksaw was like a coach, man. He was a grumpy old man, you know. And everything had to be, you know, who's blocking you, you know. Little keys like, what do you see? What do you see the guard doing? You know, look at him, look at his eyes, you know, look at the quarterback, look at the quarterback's hands, you know, see what he's doing when he's under center with his fingers, you know, what's moving, you know. And that was the thing that you learned too. I learned from Fred Dean. Fred Dean said, hey, don't watch the ball, find something else that's moving before the ball snapped. And that's little things that you pick up, you know, from the older guys who played the game. And teaching too. When you're a coach, you teach guys, you know, hey, look for things, you know, look for the little things. And I know Dion, when we played Andre Rison, okay, he knew Andre like a book, you know. He knew Andre, when he wasn't getting the ball, he wouldn't put his mouthpiece in, you know. He would come up to the line of scrimmage, you know, and not put his mouthpiece in. And I remember Dion got kicked out the game in Atlanta because he quick jammed Andre, and they got in a fight because Dion knew he wouldn't. He wasn't running the route because he took his mouthpiece out, and they got into a duking match. And I don't know if you guys, Dion got tossed out the game for that.
You know? Oh, I remember that one. Absolutely, yeah, that was an old timer there. It's like a pitcher tipping his pitches.
Yeah. So it was one of those things. That's what it was all about, you know. It's like believing in each other and holding each other accountable.
Building the culture, the winning culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly what the 49ers are trying to do right now with this season, trying to reverse the fortunes that they had last year and get back to that team that is regularly going to the NFC Championship, the Super Bowl, and hopefully sometime in my lifetime, because I'm one of that part of that generation, Brian, that you're talking about that has not been able to thoroughly enjoy a 49ers Super Bowl. I mean, I don't think me being 9 months old at the time they won the 94 championship counts. But, you know, it would be amazing to see this iteration of the 49ers get back to that level, climb that mountaintop. And it hasn't quite happened. They've gotten close, but man, that's what they're trying to get back to right now with this team this season. And you know, they have the Cardinals coming up next, 2-0 start, so pretty good start for the 49ers. But as we were saying, you know, it's going to come down a lot to the quarterback play. And speaking of quarterback play, we got to talk a little bit about Brock Purdy, because we spent some time talking about Kyler Murray, but is Brock really maybe going to play? Let's talk about that next here on the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. Today's show is sponsored by 5-Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. And as someone who is constantly on the go, my schedule is completely insane. I have like 4 or 5 different jobs. I play softball like 3 times a week. I just do way too many things all the time. And I'm always tired, man, always sleepy. So the fact that I can just grab one of these and put it in my pocket and have it whenever I need it throughout the day. I don't got to go out of my way to go to some coffee shop or anything. It's so easy. It's so convenient, so portable, and so delicious. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-hour energy shots. Get the favorites you love or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. Welcome back to the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel, joined as always by Brian Peacock, host of the Locked On 49ers podcast, and Dwayne Board, 4-time Super Bowl champion with the San Francisco 49ers. And we spent some time talking about how, kind of how Kyler Murray has given the 49ers some issues through the years, and Shanahan hasn't always been, great against stopping that system. But the 49ers right now, it seems like they're, kind of a little bit better geared to kind of stop all that. But it's not just going to be one side of the ball, right? There's the 49ers offense versus the Cardinals defense that we got to get into a little bit as well. And you can't talk about the 49ers offense right now without kind of wondering, or at least first answering the question, who's going to play quarterback this week? Brian, I want to start with you. What are your is it even feasible to think that Brock might get out there on Sunday, or are you just completely dismissing this? It's Mac Jones. We're just rolling with Mac.
There's a couple of things at play. Earlier on in the week, I thought Kyle was just, kind of doing the thing where you want the other team to prepare for two quarterbacks. But seeing that Brock Purdy, albeit limited, has practiced 2 days in a row, I think is pretty big. And John Lynch was actually on KMBR on Thursday morning, and he said, it was good that Brock could be at practice limited on Wednesday. We'll see if he can do it in back-to-back days and stack those days together. And so it turns out he was able to, and he was on the practice field again Thursday. And so when it comes to Kyle Shanahan, and we've seen it time and time again with different players at different positions, he's not going to hold anybody out that can play. If Brock says he can go and the doctors say he's not going to, injure himself worse, then he's going to be out there. I think we'll probably know a little bit more. If he has a full participant Friday at practice, then Brock's going to play because Kyle's not going to hold him out. And I wonder if Brock has just a little extra bit of motivation with all the good things everyone's saying about his backup quarterback. He wants to remind everybody, like, well, hold on a second. I'm QB1, guys. Don't forget about that. Don't be getting too excited about this backup quarterback. I'm going to be back this week.
And Brock also was taking reps with the third string, which he wasn't at some point in time with on Wednesday with the practice, or at Wednesday's practice, he was taking reps with the third string unit. And that's, kind of the position that he was in when he first got to camp, and he was behind Trey Lance and Jimmy G. And he kind of has talked openly about how, he definitely had a chip on his shoulder about that and used that as motivation. And so I think you're 100% right, Brian. I think that's absolutely something that he's going to utilize as some motivation. And also the fact that he's, if you're the starting quarterback of a team and you're running out there with your third string squad, and you're hearing all these other things from the peripheries about, oh, Shanahan wanted Mac Jones all along kind of thing, it can't not motivate you as a professional athlete. I mean, Dwayne, if even if Brock is, let's say Brock is 60%, 65%, would you rather see Brock at 65% than Mac Jones, despite what we saw from Mac last week? Or would you play it safe and let Brock rest up and just roll with Mac because he gave you so much confidence last week?
You're talking being 60%, right? A turf, having that turf toe is tough, and it's something that if you go too soon and injure it again, it's going to put you farther away from being being able to do the things you like to do. And the only thing that I can say is they're not playing on turf, which is a lot harder on you. They're playing on grass, so that's something that you can take into account too, because the natural grass kind of protects you a little bit more than being on artificial turf. And I think I hate to say it, but he makes a lot of money, right? You want him on the field, so if you're looking at, well, okay, you can play him this week because of, he says he can go. And the thing about it too, Brian, what did he do? He ended the game in Seattle, right? So it's telling you that, maybe it's not as bad as people think it is. Maybe that one game holding him out, he's better.
Yeah, and the one thing you definitely can't do is what happened in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow and allow him to go out there if there's a chance he's going to hurt it worse, and then you have to get the turf toe surgery. And I think if I'm not mistaken, their turf toe is a little bit different. Usually, turf toe is a big toe injury where it's the ligament between the toe and the foot, and Brock Purdy's is a little bit more midfoot, which is actually, is there such thing as when you gain sympathy weight when your wife gets pregnant or something like that? Is there sympathy injuries? Because I swear right before last season, I got this weird Achilles tendonitis, and that was going around for the 49ers. And I literally a week and a half ago, I got this kind of turf toe thing, and it's the Brock Purdy kind that's in the middle of my foot, and my third toe, and not on the big toe either. So I might be getting sympathy injuries with what's going on with the 49ers. It's really wild, but you can't let Brock go out there and get hurt, and then it's like Joe Burrow and you miss 3 months instead of 3 weeks. You can't do that.
Well, Joe Burrow was the big toe, right?
It was big toe for Joe Burrow, yeah.
And that's a little different. The big toe, you can't do very much with that.
You can't do anything. Yeah.
The third toe, you can do like Ronnie did. Cut it off.
That's what Brock should do. Just cut his toe off on Friday, then be ready to go.
He's got to ask Ronnie if he can borrow that scalpel. You know what I mean? to go ahead and hack that toe off. But man, I think that with what you saw from Mac Jones last week, even if I know Kyle Shanahan's mentality is kind of like you were saying, Brian, if he says he's good to go and the doctor says he's not going to hurt it worse, or most likely not going to hurt him worse, Shanahan's going to let him go. And I think that might be the wrong move in this situation. I know that it's the Cardinals. I know that all these NFC West division matchups are important, but Mac Jones, the Mac truck, played so well last week maybe we didn't see the huge highlight from him. We didn't see him, make the great sideline throw back shoulder. We didn't see that kind of precision from Mac or him really showing off the big arm talent or anything like that. But we saw him avoid that big mistake. He still had around 270, 280 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. He was great on third down. He kept the offense on schedule. He showed that he was a little more mobile than I think I expected him to be personally. So I don't know. I'm okay with starting Mac Jones another week, especially considering that you still got McCaffrey back there who seems healthy for now, I think, and you're kind of rolling right now with Mac Jones. So I think that if you're Kyle Shanahan, I think you probably want Brock to get healthy. I did also catch a little bit of the Polymac Particles podcast today, which had David Lombardi on it from the San Francisco Standard, and David said that Brock, even though he was practicing, looked a little ginger out there, but he said he looked like his phrasing was intentionally gingerly running around. So he wasn't saying necessarily that Brock couldn't unleash if he needed to, but that he was not doing that at practice. He seemed to definitely be conscientious of taking it down a notch or two. So we haven't really seen Brock rip at practice and just let it go with full speed sprints and things like that, change of direction and everything. So I'm interested to see if he's able to do those things, because I don't think that Brock's going to be able to be intentionally ginger on that foot come game time on Sunday. So if you're me, if I'm Kyle Shanahan, and if I'm in those shoes, which hope to God I never am, because I will make the wrong choice, but I think that it would be a smart decision to let Mac Jones go instead of Brock Purdy, and make sure that your $50 million man is healed up for the rest of the season, so he doesn't end up like Joe Burrow, just as Brian said. So the 49ers, I think it's going to be an interesting challenge against the Arizona Cardinals. I do think that that's another one of those teams that's kind of drafted some guys to specifically kind of stop some things the 49ers like to do, much like the Seattle Seahawks have done, and just trying to get those versatile defenders to be able to stop a guy like George Kittle or Christian McCaffrey in the pass game. And I kind of want to get into that. Christian McCaffrey, how is he going to impact this game? Let's talk about that on the other side here on the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right means cashing in. And with football back, PrizePicks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. And I'm going to go, obviously. I'm always hunting the max discounts, and I always tell you guys to do the same because why wouldn't you? And this week, you get a Patrick Mahomes half passing yard. Obviously, we're going more than on that. And the other one, I'm really feeling an A-chain touchdown this week for the Miami Dolphins. So he scored the last 4 times the Dolphins have played against the Bills. He has found the end zone. So I'm going to go just for some easy money this week. I'm going more than half a passing yard for Patrick Mahomes, and I'm going more than half a touchdown for A-chain in that Miami versus Buffalo matchup. We'll see how it all shakes out tonight on Thursday Night Football. And make sure that you go download that PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Welcome back to the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. I'm joined by Brian Peacock, host of the Locked On 49ers podcast, and Dwayne Board, 4-time Super Bowl champion. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel. And the 49ers, big matchup against the Cardinals coming this weekend. Their first matchup against an NFC West opponent, or second matchup, excuse me. They opened against the Seahawks, and 1-0 record in the division. Niners have not played the Cardinals very well in the Shanahan era, lost to the Cardinals 2 times last season. But also last season, one thing the 49ers did not have the whole year, at least, is Christian McCaffrey. And he's going to be ready and active against the Cardinals this weekend. And he's been utilized just as much as a receiver as he has been a runner so far, or as a running back this season. Brian, what are you expecting to see from Christian McCaffrey against the Arizona Cardinals? How do you think that he's going to impact this game?
Well, first of all, the Niners need to get the running game going a little bit because they're averaging, 3.5 yards per carry. I think McCaffrey's at 3.5, and I think the team's at 3.2 yards per carry right now on the season. So they need to get better as a unit up front. And I do think that Christian McCaffrey's biggest impact so far this season, and it might continue to be this way, is as a receiver. And they need him to be that as a receiver, with Juwan Jennings not practicing and potentially not playing this week, and obviously not being with George Kittle. He's their leading receiver as far as receptions goes, and he's second on the team in receiving yards to Ricky Pearsall. And so he's really important in that role. And I mentioned in the cold open about wide back season. And I really do, especially last week, you started to see how often he's lined up, moving out into the slot. He had the touchdown running route from the slot. And I think it's the best way to utilize Christian McCaffrey and his ability, because he's a phenomenal athlete. He's really good at getting open. He's got pure hands. And I think he can be a problem for teams as a receiver. I would like to see a little bit more from Brian Robinson as the other running back that's going to start getting more carries. But to see Kyle Shanahan finally kind of move away from giving all of the carries to Christian McCaffrey, I think is really important for both McCaffrey's longevity, and I think utilizing another receiver, because the Niners are down receivers right now, and McCaffrey I think is a matchup problem for teams. And so I think we're in wide back 2.0 season right now, and I'm all about it. I love it. I think it's the right way to play this, and we'll see if that continues. And but whoever's running the football needs to have a little bit more success. And so I don't know if it's early season, defenses are ahead of offenses, but there's really not that many teams running the ball well around the NFL. So it's not just the 49ers. And that includes the Arizona Cardinals, who are right about the same place in their yards per carry so far this year. They've had one big run from Trey Benson, the backup running back, and otherwise they haven't been strong running the football either. So I think it might be a league-wide issue and not just a 49ers issue right now. But both these teams want to run the football.
Yeah, and I know, because I think anyone who plays fantasy knows that running backs have been really hard this year. Omarion Hampton, a guy who a lot of people were high on, has been not very good with the Chargers. Derrick Henry last week was held to like under 30 yards. So some weird stuff all around the NFL in the running back position. But just to your point about McCaffrey being utilized as a wide back, he's actually got more receiving yards this year than he has rushing yards. He has 125 receiving yards through these first 2 weeks and 124 rushing yards, 8.3 yards per reception and 3.5 yards per rush. And his only touchdown is through the air. So, I think in his longest play of the season, 25-yarder, a pass catch, not a run. So, we have not seen that explosiveness from Christian McCaffrey in the ground game. His longest rush of the year has been 13 yards. It's not the same guy that we're used to seeing. So I think this is how you maximize Christian McCaffrey's talents at this point. We talked with Eric Crocker on Sunday about how McCaffrey might not be the same level of explosiveness anymore, but it doesn't mean that he's any less versatile. Just because he might not have that same, take the top off type playmaking ability on every single down doesn't mean that he can't still be ultra effective in this offense. And this is kind of to that point, and also speaking of Crocker, Brian, I just need you to know, you told us a couple shows ago about how he always loves to refer to that one Eli Mitchell game. He brought up the Eli Mitchell game in Sunday's show, and I just needed to let you know that because you were right on it, man.
I mean, Kyle Shanahan doesn't care. You could be in a cast on Saturday. If you get cleared by the doctors, you're going to play every snap that he wants you to play on Sunday. That's just the way Kyle Shanahan is wired. And you hope he doesn't run Christian McCaffrey into the ground because he needs a lot of Christian McCaffrey early this season because of all the injuries. And by the way, speaking of wide back offense, don't forget, just wait until, I don't know, week 5, 6, 7, when Mike McDaniel gets fired in Miami. He comes back over and starts cooking in the lab for some of that wide back stuff like he did for Deebo Samuel. So just wait.
Yeah. I mean, that's entirely a possibility. Miami looks really bad right now. And I know I gave everyone the Achane touchdown on the PrizePicks read, and I still stand by that. Achane's been just a touchdown machine so far this year for the Dolphins as well. But that team's going the wrong direction. Poor Mike McDaniel. He's such a vibe out there in South Beach too. I feel like he fits in so well. But he'll adapt if he has to come back to the Bay. I'm sure of it. Dwayne, for this 49ers rushing attack, are you seeing anything in the Cardinals defense that the 49ers rushing attack can exploit, that Christian McCaffrey can utilize to get going on the ground? Is there a weak point in this Cardinals front seven that the 49ers should utilize the ground game to attack?
Just looking at the defense, the thing about the Cardinals is I would attack them outside, and I think that's the weakness of the defense is the edge. And also, you're looking at Baker, right? He's the second leading tackler on the team, and they play him down in the box a lot. So I would run away from him. And once you get that running game going, like Brian said earlier, is the little short passes. That's one thing that you get, a dunk pass to Christian McCaffrey instead of handing it off to him, let him get it in the open. And that's what you want, because he can make some things happen. And from him coming back from his injury, it's only the third game, and he hasn't gotten going yet. I think this is going to be a big game for him to get it going. And that's the way I would play the game. I would try to get him as many short dunk passes closest to the line of scrimmage as I can, and even throw in a few screen plays because he's a good screen runner. And, you got him on Buda Baker. I'll take Christian McCaffrey any day of the week on him,
Yeah, I do think Buda Baker is kind of the one player on that defense that you got to key in on. If you can find a way to neutralize him, then the 49ers will have a good shot at success in this one, I think, because they do have some other pieces that they've upgraded with in the last couple of years, but he's still the clear number one player on that defense, I think. And he makes plays both in the pass play and up in the box. He's a tough tackler. He definitely hits guys pretty hard, likes to jar that ball loose, and he'll be a game wrecker at some points if you don't find a way to neutralize him. So I think that will be important, and I also think it's going to be important for Ricky Pearsall to get going, because this is a guy that we saw develop that he didn't have the most outrageous stat line after box score after the game against the Saints, 4 receptions, 56 yards. But they were all, it felt like really big plays when he made them, right? Like it felt like they were plays that helped Mac Jones get in a rhythm early on in that game and really settle into that offense. I think it's going to be important for, a Ricky Pearsall or maybe a Kendrick Bourne to get going early. Just someone that, Mac Jones can be comfortable with and see a couple completions, see the ball get caught a couple times and the chains move and all that. And I think that if they're able to get off to that that hot start offensively, if they don't go, 3-and-out the first series, 3-and-out the second series, I think that that'll be a good sign for the 49ers. I think that's very key in this one against the Cardinals. That was something that the Cardinals were really good at last season, is scoring early in games and scoring quick early in games. So they did that against the 49ers last year as well. So if the 49ers this year are able to be the team that strikes first, I think that gives them a much better shot at winning this one. Looking at the wide receiver core going into this week, we've talked a lot about this unit as a whole as being kind of a question mark for this team, but it seems to be kind of settling in. And I know I'm personally feeling a little bit more confident in this unit. Brian, how are you feeling about this wide receiver group going into this matchup against the Cardinals?
Not super confident in it, to be honest with you. And aside from Ricky Pearsall, who's, a second-year player and still pretty unproven himself, I don't know where you can really hang your hat on any of these pass catchers. And, Juwan Jennings had the nice 42-yard touchdown catch and run last week, which was really impactful and huge, but he's, not playing at 100% right now. And I don't think you can expect much from Sky Moore. Marquez Valdez-Scantling doing his cardio king thing, just kind of running down the field. And I think he got one target or something last week. Russell Gage looked good in camp, but hasn't really been involved either. So when it comes to the wide receiver position, maybe Kendrick Bourne, it's so hard. He does have experience in Kyle Shanahan's offense, but he hasn't been around for very long this year. So maybe now that he's been here for a week, he can be a little bit more involved and be a little bit more of that Juwan Jennings role if Juwan Jennings can't go. So that's helpful. But that's why I'm talking so much about Christian McCaffrey being a big part of it, and maybe even the 1A and 1B with Ricky Pearsall in this passing game, because you got to find ways to move the ball. And I think this Cardinals defense, with the injuries they have at cornerback, that's probably one of the ways you want to be able to try to attack them is on the outside. And that's tough to do if you're banged up at wide receiver and you either have a backup quarterback or a banged up QB1 going out there. And if it's going to be tough running the football, it might be one of those grinded out, low scoring football games in the end.
Yeah, and those types of games seem to happen against the Cardinals and don't tend to go the 49ers' way in recent history. And so that's why I am a little bit concerned about this matchup. And I look at, the pass catching distribution last week, and it was a lot of, by committee. Like you had Luke Farrell and Jake Ton just combined for 6 receptions for about 50 yards and kind of try to fill in the absence of George Kittle a little bit and just make that, somewhat of a viable position to gain some yardage out of. And Kendrick Bourne, like we've talked about this before, he does a lot of the same things as Juwan Jennings. So really hard to get both of those guys on the field at the same time because they want to line up in similar spots and do similar things. And it makes the offense a little bit slow, a little bit clunky. You don't really have that take the top off the defense, big play capability on this team outside of maybe Ricky Pearsall. I know Juwan Jennings last week took that 42-yarder to the house, but that to me was a little bit more play design than Juwan Jennings just outrunning people and him just getting open on that one. But it's going to have to be by committee again this week, and maybe they'll have some opportunities to do that because, as you said, the Cardinals defense is banged up right now at those cornerback positions and in the secondary. But overall, it kind of just seems to, kind of be a wash because so are the 49ers. And it's all these weird things that just seem to make it one of those, like you said, very, very grindy games. And the Niners have not been very good in these ones. So I'm curious to see how they respond to this. At both teams 2-0, both teams, playing well to start the season. And I think it's going to be a tough one, man. I really do. But ultimately, I think the 49ers will prevail in this one. I think that they kind of get vengeance for the 0-2 against the Cardinals last year. I'm going to go ahead and say, 21-14. 49ers win by a solid touchdown, no field goals, something Dwayne Board can appreciate. No field goals, just going out and getting touchdowns. Dwayne, how are you feeling about the outcome of this one? What do you got?
I'm going 24-17 49ers. We're going to leave the kickers out of it this time, okay? Last week it started off a little shaky, right?
It did.
Eddie Pinheiro just trying to keep us all on our toes with that first miss. And but man, his field goals were dead straight after that. Like there was no tilt at all to that, to those field goals from Eddie Pinheiro. So feeling a little bit more comfortable there. I like the 49ers in this one, guys, because I think, and one of the things that goes kind of that we don't talk about with Christian McCaffrey is when he doesn't touch the football and how impactful those play action throws are, because we saw it with Luke Farrell's touchdown last week. It's like, every defensive coordinator, especially with the injuries the 49ers have had, they're going to come in and say, we got to stop 23. And so when you go play action boot and 10 guys have their eyes on 23, well, he doesn't have the football. So that makes that pitch and catch really easy for a touchdown throw to Luke Farrell. So I think you might see one of those for the Niners, get a nice little play action shot play in this one that's going to put the 49ers over the top. I like the Niners in this one, 23-19. Ugly score, ugly game.
23-19. And yeah, I mean, that sounds right. Looking back at my score, I'm not super happy with picking only touchdowns. I feel like there's going to be a lot of field goals in this game.
I mean, I feel like I maybe picked too many points even there, but it's going to be an ugly score, and I think the 49ers in the end are going to put more in the end zone. Home opener too, all white, alternate uniforms. I think the Cards are going to run into a buzzsaw with a jacked up Levi Stadium crowd to help give the 49ers the edge there.
Yeah, Dwayne, what is that like coming out for a home opener after you've been on the road for maybe a week or two to start the season, to come back and be amongst the faithful? It was Candlestick then, but it's Levi's now. What was that like for you as a player coming back for your home opener?
Oh, it's great when you come back and you walk into your stadium, you hear everybody cheering. You don't hear that other team when they do something good, get all roused up. It's a great feeling. And the thing about it is, you can't wait to get out on the field. You get to the stadium, and it takes you a while to get in because you get all the people out there, partying before the game, and they're all jacked up, and they're cheering you when you come in. It's a great feeling. But the thing you have to look out for is don't get caught in a buzzsaw, on your first game. You put a little bit more effort into the first home opening game.
Yeah. So would you consider the home opener to just have a little more juice than your standard average NFL game?
Well, yeah, a lot more juice. Anytime you play at home, you get more juice. Especially, with your fan base. It doesn't matter. You look at, when you look at other teams like who was it, the Raiders? They go play, and half the team is a visit, half the stadium is filled with visitors. And that's the thing that don't happen. When you're at home. It was like a wonderful thing in Seattle was. The Niners took over the stadium. It was a lot of red, not too much blue in those stands. So you don't want that to happen. So it's great to be able to go into your home stadium and look at your scoreboard instead of the visitors. I used to hate going into Dallas Stadium, listen to them Cowboys, them, and it was terrible. You learn to hate those guys.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. It's especially from that era. I mean, I feel like 49ers fans that are from my era, like the 30s crowd is maybe that the Cowboys rivalry isn't as prevalent, but that's just because the Cowboys haven't won anything in 20 to 30 years. They haven't really even made a mark in the playoffs, which has been kind of, I've enjoyed watching that, and I'm sure that you have thoroughly enjoyed that as well.
Yeah. The thing about it too is like we used to go to LA too, and the 49 fans would take over the Rams stadium. And
they still do.
That's my point, when they got the Rams coming up here pretty soon, but at least they're at home, but when you go to the Rams stadium, you want to see red, it's like, hey, we're taking over. It's our home stadium this week, buddy. You guys take the back seat. So you don't want that to happen in your home stadium.
Yeah, I told you this, I think, on our first show, but every time I think of the Rams Niners matchups, I just think of Ronnie, because he always lived for those that Rams week matchup, and they'll be playing the Rams week 5 at SoFi. It's going to be on Amazon on Prime because it's going to be on a Thursday night, I believe. But it's going to be that'll be yet another early season NFC West matchup for the 49ers. But got to get through the Cardinals first. And
you're looking down the road, Eric.
Yeah, we are. But yeah, Cardinals first. We've got a couple more games after that before they'll be the Rams will be not coming to town, but before the 49ers go down to LA to face the Rams. And in this one against the Cardinals, I do think that it's going to come down to the 49ers passing attack against that Cardinals secondary. Like we've said, the 49ers run game, I think, is going to kind of continue to give us what it has so far this season. But the one thing that we really haven't talked too much in this show yet about, Dwayne, is that Cardinals rushing attack against the 49ers front seven. And there's some things that I've seen so far from that 49er front seven that I think have been encouraging from a lot of their young guys, specifically Michael Williams. I liked that last week we saw him impacting both plays in the run and the pass. He was in the backfield a lot, it seemed like, in last week's game against the Saints. So, Dwayne, what are you seeing from these young 49ers in the front seven, and how do you think they're going to match up against the Arizona Cardinals rushing attack, which hasn't really, shined to any real big degree so far this season?
I think, from jumping from last year, they struggled against the run because of the inside guys. They didn't have the beef that they got now. They went out and got some big, stout inside tackles, and those guys are making a difference. They're doing a good job pushing the pocket when they're in the passing game. And like you said, Williams, I thought he played pretty well, last week. And the thing about this week is the thing that he's going to have to do, because the Cardinals, they run a lot of read option, right? So he's going to have to be consistent. He's got to be disciplined. He's got to play the edge and make sure that Tyler Murray hands that ball off instead of pulling it, because if he's running the read option and he's coming down the line of scrimmage, hey, you better make sure that he hands the ball off, because he don't want to get one-on-one, tackling him, and that's the biggest thing, that he's going to have to do is play, well in the run game on the edge, setting the edge against Tyler Murray.
And, this, we were talking Ronnie a little bit earlier, and one thing a Ronnie Lott-ism comes to mind when I think about Kyler Murray. And one thing that I, watching back through old Ronnie interviews from back in the day, one thing that I know that he always used to say was sometimes you got to take the 15, right, Dwayne? And sometimes you just got to hit that quarterback and let him know you're there. And I think that if Kyler does a little bit too much of that scamper and stuff, someone please go Ronnie Lott and take the 15, man. Just let him know you're there. Let him know that you're not going to let him get away with that little guy running around and trying to, weave through those big bodies. I want someone to punish him and make him feel you, if you know what I mean.
Eric, this is the thing too. You can if he slides, you can do a flyby. Okay, you fly over him, but guess what? You land. Guess what you do? You give him a little knee in the back of his helmet, because that'll make him a little dizzy. So you don't want to just go pile on him. So you go by, you fly over the top, and accidentally your knee is a little, a right hook. You get this guy know how to do it clean. Look so bad.
Yeah, exactly. Just something to kind of let them know, that's not going to fly. That kind of stuff not happening today without some form of punishment. You know what I mean? Well, we got to get one more break in here before the end of this one. Real quick here on the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back and put a bow on this one. Not sure what happened to Brian, man. I wonder if Gremlins got his computer just like Gremlins got your computer the other day. You guys are just trading Gremlins here on the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. Quick break. We'll be right back on the other side. Today's show is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. And with Mazda, they bring that same intention to how they craft every single model. And I can attest to that as someone who owned a Mazda for a decade of their life. Mazda's super reliable, super safe, and I loved driving it. It was such a fun car to drive, and that thing lasted me for I mean, so long. As I said, like a decade. And I'm, I got to go. I don't drive a whole lot here in San Francisco anymore, but if I was going to, you know that I'm already going to Mazda. So like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Welcome back to the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. I'm your host, Eric Triple E, joined by four-time Super Bowl champion Dwayne Board and Brian Peacock, who was with us for the majority of this one until Gremlins ate his computer or something. Maybe chewed through some of his wiring. I'm not quite sure. We lost Brian along the way, but we're holding it down here. And just to put a feather in the cap of this one, Dwayne, what's if you got to nail down one key to success for the 49ers to win against the Cardinals real quickly, what is that one key?
Starting fast. I that's going to be the key. And we talked about it before. It's time for the special teams to show up. We haven't seen what we need to see on special teams. But I'm one of those guys. I'm biased. I only talk defense and special teams. Offense is a whole different school. It's a whole different learning process. But on big games, those two teams has to show up.
Yep.
Hey,
and go ahead.
I'm saying they need to come up with a turnover, on special teams. I'm talking about, and also we need a big play, either punt return or a kickoff return. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, we were talking Prime earlier, man. How good would it be to have Prime back there running kicks back for the 49ers right now, man? That would completely change how we feel about the special teams unit. But for me, I think that the one key is getting Christian McCaffrey going early, because he's the guy he's the engine that turns this offense. If you get on the board early against this Arizona Cardinals team, I think that they'll maybe start to press. And as we kind of talked about earlier on in the show, this Cardinals offense isn't exactly lighting the world on fire. And so if they have to press to kind of come from behind and end up throwing the ball a lot, I don't know if they have the horses to really do that. Marvin Harrison hasn't had the best season so far. I don't know if you're going to be able to come back from being, if the 49ers can get up a couple scores early on and force the Cardinals into, pass first type situations. If you're running out there with a tight end as your number one option, it kind of limits what you can do offensively, I think, in those types of scenarios. So if I'm the 49ers, I'm looking to get Christian McCaffrey going early and often, which I'm sure Kyle Shanahan would just absolutely love to do against any opponent, but especially in this matchup against the Cardinals. Feed McCaffrey. Hopefully he gets a little bit more efficient yards on the ground. I think that's going to be a big key in this one as well. But that's all the time we really got for this show today. Dwayne, I'm so glad that you gave us that story earlier on in the show. I want more stories, man. I want more stories. So next week or Sunday, we need a story.
My prime story.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll try to get one each week.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll make sure that Brian's all ready to go for Sunday's show as well, or Eric Crocker if he's joining us on Sunday. Not quite sure who's going to be joining us yet, but it will be me and Dwayne and either Brian or Eric on Sunday wrapping this Niners Cardinals game. So make sure you're tuning into that, and make sure that you're checking out Brian's Locked On 49ers daily show every day. Your first listen for all your 49ers news and need to know items. Thanks so much for joining us today, all our everydayers on the Locked On Sports Network. Appreciate each and every one of you. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel, joined by four-time Super Bowl champion Dwayne Board, and we'll see you on Sunday. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Peace.